Hello everyone and welcome to the Inside the Ropes Raw Rundown. The WrestleMania hangover has officially passed. It's passed over. It is the first Raw outside of WrestleMania season, really. And, well, we didn't have a champion. Daniel Bryan was off on his honeymoon, so that must be awful for him. It must be terrible. He's out somewhere sunny, probably.
With a Bella.
Boning a Bella. Yeah, so it's not exactly all that bad for him, but was it good for Monday Night Raw that they didn't have the WWE World Heavyweight Champion there? That's what we're here to discuss. I'm Robert Duffin. I'm here, as always, with Kenny McIntosh, who will open this with a few news nuggets before we start talking about Monday Night Raw.
Indeed. There's been a couple of news items that have come out since Raw. And I guess the first one is that the logo that the WWE have been using for the network, Stephanie McMahon has confirmed today, will be the new WWE logo across all platforms by August. So I remember when it came out in 2011, people were like, oh my god, look at it, fucking futuristic shite. Well, that's what you can get used to, because that's going to be the new logo as of August. I think the scratch logo they had was like, I don't know if that was longer than the one before it, but I mean it was like 15 years. So I don't know. I know it might seem to some people it's like, why are you bringing up the change of a logo? But some people will care about this. Some people will have a real issue with this being the new logo. So, Robert, because I know that these are the things that really are what you're interested in, talk to me about your initial thoughts here. Break it down for me. The changing of the logo for WWE.
I don't really care. That's not entirely true. If it was awful, if it was so terrible, if it was, if the new WWE logo was like, I don't know, like a little kind of picture of Stephanie nailing Triple H's balls to the wall or something, then maybe I'd be like, well, that's inappropriate, But unfortunately, it's just a slightly jazzier version of the Scratch logo, which I think they definitely have had longer than the blocky logo, I think. I'm almost positive, because that morphed a little bit along the way, because there was like the scratchy over blocky for a while as well. But
yeah, I think they got the one that was like the classic WWF one. I'm sure they had like 84 maybe to like 97. So yeah, 13 years, and then ever since beginning of 98 we've had the scratch logo.
Indeed.
So
I think the issue is that people are going to complain about this no matter what. Like, is it a terrible logo? Not really. We've all seen it on the network. We'll deal with it. It's just one of these things that people like to complain, and arguably the Scratch logo has been pretty outdated now for a good 5-6 years, and they have to update it. They might as well keep the brand the same across the network and normal programming. And I think no matter what the design was, people will complain about it, and then everyone will say what they want is something more similar to the 80s block one. But then if they did just do that again and something similar to that, people would just complain about that. I think it was a no-win situation for the people who care about it. I think the people who don't mind so much, like me, are just going to go, okay, well, that's the logo. That's cool. It's fine. It's just a logo. And people that care about the logo were probably always going to moan about what they did. It's the same as the people who complain about the title belts. Some people just don't really. I say I'm more concerned about title belts than logos, but
I was going to say I refuse to believe that you're one of these people that's like, oh yeah, have whatever title belt you want. But yeah, I think the title belt does mean more than a logo.
Yeah.
I mean, the logo you can sort of deal with.
I'd be concerned about the belts being changed, but it's that way where every time they change a belt, there's going to be a large group of people who are going to complain about it regardless. Like when they went back to the old IC title design, people still were like, well, it's not exactly right. And what about this white strap? I was like, oh my god. I was like, just calm down a little bit. So yeah, that's what it's going to be, and that's fine. Like, I'm cool with it. It's not, I don't think it's terrible. I mean, I don't love it, but then I'm never gonna like weight it. I'm not gonna like have a T-shirt with just the logo on it, or like, when am I gonna use it? And it's just their logo, that's their thing, and they update it, very rarely, and this will probably be what they use for the next decade or so, and that's fine, no big deal.
Yeah, it's one of these things. I know some people are going to kind of be like, it's not very iconic, and it's not. But it's not really been around yet. So
Well, yeah, things are
maybe,
only, things are
maybe
only. You can think something can only be iconic if it's allowed to be there.
yeah,
Like
I know.
it's
Like
nothing.
I'm sure when they first came up with that, like the classic WWF one, some fans have been like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah,
And then that became like the thing. But Jeff Jarrett is in the news again today, but this time not for assaulting a minor.
and that's
Which
a young person. Not he's not been down to Newcastle to beat up people in the pits.
No, he's not been like Jerry Lawler 1993 country, where Jerry got accused of another type of assault with a minor, which he was proven innocent on, we should add. But he, yeah, got taken out of Survivor Series that year. Shawn Michaels replaced him with the Knights. That was also the night that Terry Funk phoned in sick and said that his horse was ill. Anyway, these are the things you learn. But Jeff Jarrett's in the news, and he has made another announcement of Global Force Wrestling, or as Robert likes to call it, Jeff Wrestling.
Jeff Wrestling, unbelievable, Jeff.
I know, it's great. He's signed a deal with 25/7 Productions, and more specifically Dave Broom, who was the creator of NBC's The Biggest Loser show. So, he's kind of made a partnership here with someone who is proven of making a very successful television show in the US that was on NBC. So this is not a bad person to kind of, partner up with here. And there was a press release put out today, and Broom said, it's easy to get excited about Global Force Wrestling when you know Jeff Jarrett and see his passion and understand his vision. He's eager to bring a new perspective to wrestling. We're eager to help him achieve that goal. The thing that I thought was interesting was that I read somewhere when I was reading different articles about it that Jarrett has up to 500 performers for this new company.
That's not true, though, is
that
it?
might no, I don't think he has 500 people signed, but I think I assume it's like this kind of like talent search thing almost, that he's kind of got 500 that he likes, and we'll see who we end up with. The press release said that they've got over 500 talents in their database. I do love the idea that they have someone sitting with a database, because I assume it's a woman that knows nothing about wrestling. She just sort of comes in, types in names and goes, "Oh, that guy's got a funny name." That's just
I have 558 friends on Facebook, but that doesn't mean
that
doesn't mean I actually have 558 friends. So I don't really know what this.
I don't feel sorry for.
No, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just saying I don't really think this. We've got 500 wrestlers in our database. It's like, okay, like is it like LinkedIn or something?
So that's the second announcement that he's made. So I assume the next one, this one's got a bit more of a punch to it than the first one, because the first one was essentially just, this is the name, and we talked about it before. Like, there's only so many 3-letter names you can come up with that people are, that people are going to be able to take seriously. So I guess we'll see. We'll keep up with where that goes. Speaking of Jeff Jarrett, who is still apparently the largest shareholder in TNA, which makes me laugh so much that he's just left and created a new promotion with this, he's got a partnership with this guy from NBC, but he's still got a stake in TNA. Only TNA would allow that to happen. But anyway.
But what I was going to ask was, I saw on Twitter, there was lots of pictures of him and his wife were like posing with Kevin Nash and Kaz and Daniels and saying like join the Force, and I wasn't really sure whether I was being recruited as a Jedi, or is Kevin Nash going to be wrestling for him or working for him?
I've not heard anything yet, but as you know, I assume he could be.
I assume there wouldn't be a promotional picture with Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash and Karen Jarrett with the logo on it if he wasn't doing something with them. But it seems kind of odd.
Yeah,
that he would go and do that, but I guess he does what he does.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, speaking of TNA, they've started signing a lot of their guys to long-term contracts. In the last couple of days, they've signed James Storm, Gunner, Robbie E. But the interesting thing is, obviously WWE have kind of made it clear that they're not interested in TNA talent, so that's just not what they're going to go for. But it seems like with Jarrett's promotion just starting up, they're trying to kind of lock in as many people as they can, which is clever.
I get the impression that TNA are on the verge of losing Bully Ray and Samoa Joe.
And potentially Kaz and Daniels as well.
And Kaz and Daniels are gone. Like they're definitely gone.
Yeah. So they're.
So, but I think Bully Ray and Samoa Joe are also both on their way out. Where they go, presumably to Jarrett, but who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But was so that's kind of that news. The other last kind of news nugget that we got is that WrestleMania has been touted as having over 1 million viewers because, in addition to the 667,000 people that have bought the network, they've got just under 400,000 buys domestically in the US for WrestleMania this year. So before they've even counted international buys, they're over 1 million. And although it's not as much money, because the network's obviously $10 a month, it's an interesting number. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's hard because you can't really tell how many international buys there's going to be. A couple of years ago, the international buys were 500,000.
Well,
is it more?
I think this is pretty good. I mean, there's an element of sort of WWE revisionism happening already, because when the numbers were first announced, a lot of news reports were like, "Oh, I don't know if this is good," or whatever's going on there. But I mean, if you look at what the actual drop is domestically, given the gain of the network, then I don't actually think it's that bad. I don't think they are. I mean, they are obviously with their 1 million viewers thing. I mean, I subscribed to the network. I didn't watch it on the network because I was there. So I assume there's a lot of people. There's probably quite a significant percentage of network subscribers who actually didn't watch it on the network, that maybe still went for the pay-per-view or maybe watched it in a bar or whatever. But they're not going to be too picky about that. They're just going to add all these numbers up and think it was great, which is good, because I'd rather they looked at it like that than that it was disastrous. So, but yeah, exactly. I think the what was the domestic buys for WrestleMania 28 was like just over 600,000. And this is like approaching 400,000. So if you look at, like, I'd say there's a drop off domestic buys in the last 2 years of 200,000 people, but there are 600,000 plus subscribing to the network. It's not actually that bad. And then when you take into account that the network isn't legally available over here, and it seems like most of the people who have actually managed to get it are so stupid they can't work it anyway or work out what the hell's supposed to be on the network. They probably didn't watch WrestleMania on it over here. So I think that the buys over here might still be quite strong. I guess we'll find out. So basically what we're saying is that it turns out Daniel Bryan is the biggest draw in the history of WrestleMania. Crazy, right?
Who would have thought it?
I got a funny feeling they're not going to put that spin on it, but there we go. I think it'll end up being quite a positive number, and in terms of the decision. And I know you said on the Facebook, like, don't be surprised if the pay-per-view WrestleMania becomes pay-per-view only next year, and I would maybe disagree, because they only get a percentage of pay-per-view buys, but they get everything. They get everything from the network.
But the reason I was saying that is because if you look at it, WrestleMania is the only pay-per-view that if you bought the network, you would probably buy WrestleMania on top of it if it wasn't included. Like, if you included everything else and all 11 pay-per-views and all that, I still think the majority of people would buy the network.
I think if they were forced to, then of course they would. But I think the tone of the press release and how much of a positive spin they're putting on the network towards their shareholders, I think they're probably going to want to try and keep bringing this as much in-house as possible.
Yeah, it'll all be to do with what their bottom line number is by the end of 2014. Because the thing to bear in mind is they said publicly that 1 million subscribers will break them even, and 2 million will make them. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I guess we just need to wait and see to the end of the year and see what the scope is then, because that's what it's all going to depend on. If they have. It's going to take them 1 million subscribers to break even, and it's going to be 2 million to make money. So, if we get to the end of 2014 and they're on 1 million or just about, I'd be very surprised if WrestleMania 31 is still on the network. But we'll see. I guess it's just one of these kind of it's we've got nothing to compare it to, so it's not as if say, well, this happened before, so this is how it's going to work. So I guess it's just a kind of wait and see game and speculate, really.
I think that they will fight tooth and claw to not have to put it back to pay-per-view only. I think people will see that as some kind of failure in the industry, that is, so I think they probably will do the best they can to spin it and make sure that they can hopefully keep everything on the network. Because I think if they had to turn around and say, right, okay guys, WrestleMania is not going to be in the network next year, that's some kind of admission of defeat to a certain extent, so they might not want to do it. But I guess I guess you're right, we just have to wait and see. There's no way to predict this. So, but last news item, just as we were recording this, actually, on the photo sharing website Imgur, and on Facebook and various Twitter places now, as it spreads out, the script for last night's Monday Night Raw is available. All the pages, the whole thing, the whole rundown, and you can flick through it and see lots of different things on it. It's odd observations include that the Ultimate Warrior tribute segment had 3 writers for Jerry Lawler's bit, which is kind of odd because he didn't really have to do anything other than say, please join us and welcome him and stuff like that. And various different interesting tidbits, like John Laurinaitis was the producer for Rob Van Dam versus Alberto Del Rio. Probably the reason why Rob Van Dam looks so awful. Various different things that you can look through. People love that kind of stuff. So you can see who was there at the show and all that kind of stuff. But the interesting things are the statuses of several WWE superstars. Obviously, people like Daniel Bryan are listed as being unavailable until the 20th of April. Other interesting ones, Rey Mysterio is now listed as injured. Alberto Del Rio is listed as injured, although he was there last night and did indeed work a match. Summer Rae will not be available for TV again until the 16th of May. Don't know why, but that's what it says.
Damn.
That's what it says in the script. This one you'll be concerned about. The Great Khali is off until May 24th. That's what it just says. Great Khali off May 24th, so you'll be devastated. But here's the one that everybody's going to want to be talking about. Well, two-parter. Number one, another person that's listed as injured to be determined is AJ Lee. So she has the same status as Christian. And the other person who has the same status, ING for injured, TBD for to be determined, is CM Punk. He is listed under miscellaneous people, which includes Undertaker, Triple H, Stephanie, Evan Bourne, Booker T, Teddy Long, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, Ricardo Rodriguez, Alex Riley, and Jason Albert. So illustrious company. And sadly, there's a little box on the very last page called Transactions, and in there it has things like unavailable, The Miz, Summer Rae, Great Khali, Bryan, and Brie. Being moved to miscellaneous this week were Brock Lesnar, Road Dogg, and Billy Gunn. So presumably, like we suggested, Brock will not be back for a long time. Neither will the New Age Outlaws. Hurrah! And this is just really sad to see this put here so clinically, but it says, removed from roster, Ezekiel Jackson and Warrior. It's really...
one of those is a lot sadder than the other, but yeah.
No, that's what I mean. It's just really odd to have that. So, I mean, yeah, I guess there should never be a bracket where the Warrior and Ezekiel Jackson are in the same category. Not really, but unfortunately they are now. They're no longer.
I guess we should. It's interesting though. I guess we should. I personally think that we're seeing. I think AJ's time in the company's dwindling down personally, but.
Yeah, well, once you've had a long Divas title reign, don't know what else there is for you to do. So, just when we thought the CM Punk fires had dwindled, here's more fuel to add to speculation that he will be. I assume people are going to extrapolate from this that he's coming back because he's still listed. I don't think it really tells you anything at this minute. It is what it is. But he's listed as injured to be determined, along with Christian. So who knows? But yeah, I would encourage people to go have a wee look because I was having a little read of it there, and it's quite interesting actually. Just the way that they've scripted out various things, and they gave the episode a name. I don't know. They must do this all the time. So this episode of Raw was called "The Evolution of Justice." So if you actually go on the network and go and look at the archive episodes of Raw, every episode of Raw does have a name. Yeah. So
they never tend to tell you what it is though. So it's just one. I don't know if there's somewhere in the US I suppose their version of the Sky Plus button, maybe it tells you on there. I don't know, but It is what it
Indeed,
is. But let's
indeed.
talk about Raw.
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, check out the script for it. But let's see. Their Raw Rundown is the script, but our Raw Rundown is the truth, brothers and sisters. So let's talk about Raw. So we kicked off with I guess the heart wrenching video tribute to the Ultimate Warrior. The whole roster were out on the Titantron stage, and Jerry Lawler introduced the Warrior video. I thought the video was really good. It was really classy. Unashamed to admit, I absolutely cried while I was watching it, especially when they played the clip of him talking to his daughters at the Hall of Fame. I hadn't even heard that before, so that was like a massive punch in the heart. I was like, oh no, this is so sad. And they managed to strike quite a nice balance throughout the show. Like they kept the kind of mourning to the beginning, and then they did pretty much celebrate his career throughout the rest of the night, and indicated that they would do on the network. I saw a lot of people say, oh, they've already, like an hour in, like people were tweeting like, oh, they've already forgotten about the fact it's meant to be a Warrior tribute show. And I said, well, it's not like an Owen Hart style episode where like they're scrapping everything. They're still trying to carry on with the storylines and all that kind of stuff. But I thought they did a nice job. You know, I thought the video package was good. The career highlights throughout the night were nice, and giving all the fans the paper Warrior masks to wear was quite good. It does actually indicate on the script to remind Jerry Lawler to tell them to put the masks on when the music hits. I'm pretty sure the crowd would have got that they were supposed to put them on, but thank God Jerry Lawler was there after all that practice telling people how to download an app. You can tell them what to do tell them what to do for the face mask. But yeah, so a very sad start to the show, but a classy one, I thought. A classy move.
Yeah, no, they definitely struck the right chord, and the video was just so emotional. The music just really fit. The song was... It reminded me unashamedly of the whole Randy Savage video when they played with him before, and it was like that was a Coldplay song they used for him. But yeah, as soon as they got to sort of the moment with his daughters and stuff, it was just heartbreaking. But even the stuff with like Hogan and Triple H and Stephanie, they didn't go too over the top, which was the fear. You know, like you had the fear that they were going to be like, I mean, he was the greatest superstar we ever had. Like there was a fear they might get to that level, but they didn't. They kept it a really good, because all the stuff they said was true. You know, he did have a lot of excitement. You did feed off his energy. Hogan was right. Everyone did look around and go, whoa, look at this guy. It was all true, and I like that.
Yeah, I agree. And we open up with the news. It broke on the .com earlier in the day that there would be a tournament to crown the number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship. And the first round match that we would have would be rekindling an old feud from last summer that we all fondly remember. Rob Van Dam taking on Alberto Del Rio, and Van Dam would go over Del Rio. I don't really know what you thought about this match, but I kind of feel like the Rob Van Dam that turned up last summer for a couple of months, like, I quite liked that guy. I don't know if this is an indicator of where the run's going this time, but I thought this was a little bit sloppy.
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay. I like the fact that they're putting emphasis on the IC title. I like the tournament idea, and that's really good. And you know, like some people, you know, whenever they do start to try and emphasize something about the IC title, everyone's going to complain. You know, they are going to be like, oh well, you know, Big E's lost every match. Yes, he has, but there comes a time where they have to do something, and they're trying with this. So you know, let's see where it goes. The Del Rio Van Dam thing. Yeah, it was just okay. What I sensed more, I mean, with Van Dam, you kind of, it's really hard because when you say this as a fan, you just sound like such a mark, like you're judging their in-ring work. You know, we're not workers, what do we know? But I think with Rob Van Dam, you do sometimes see a more crisp match that he has, and then sometimes you see a bit more sloppier style match, and this was more the sloppier style. But what I did last time I said, I really felt with Del Rio that when I look at him now, I feel like he's just lost his passion completely.
Well, what I was about to interrupt with there, apologise, but I just realised actually that if he was listed as injured on that script, then maybe they were working gingerly around something. Like maybe he didn't want
Maybe.
to go full pelt, so that could possibly be the reason for something going on there. But I thought it was okay. And yeah, I mean, it is funny that, the IC title can be not mentioned for ages, and then suddenly in one night, they're sort of talking about the Warrior as a champion, which I thought was quite a nice touch to start this tonight in that respect. But then, they go on about, Austin and Rock had great battles for the IC title, Pat Patterson, the first champion, and they start bringing out all the history lines that they only use when they sort of go, oh shit, we've really buried this. But you know what? I like pretty much all the guys in this tournament, and they're doing what I wanted them to do. It looks like they're going to base the IC title around guys who would a year ago have been competing for the World Heavyweight Championship, which no longer exists. So next up, they break the news to us that Daniel Bryan is not going to be on the show tonight because he's on honeymoon with Brie Bella, which is fine. It is what it is. He's not going to be there. Did the show miss him? I would say it did, because I just think that right after WrestleMania, it does kind of hurt to not have your champion there. But they did something else tonight. Obviously, they shifted the focus onto a different feud, which we'll get to later. I think they started showing us some more Warrior clips at this point. I think it was SummerSlam '88 was up first. But then we see Batista and Orton talking to Triple H backstage. This is the beginning of the big story of tonight. And I actually really liked this because I always said one of the things that was missing the last couple of years on Raw was the idea of a story progressing across the whole episode, which used to be really prevalent in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think I'm maybe just making assumptions here, but I wonder whether that's Triple H bringing that kind of, threaded storytelling back, because they did the same thing at WrestleMania, and I think it works. So basically, Triple H is turning to Dave Batista and Randy Orton, saying, whenever we're all together, we can take these guys out. And a little thing, I don't know about you, but this is a little detail I actually really liked, where both Orton and Batista said, "This isn't our problem. They're targeting you. We just want to win the world title. Like, that is what we want." And I think at this point we knew it was going to happen anyway, with regards to.
Still fun seeing the journey play out, though.
Yeah, and but I enjoyed that part of it. I was like, okay, so presumably the Shield are going to maybe give them a bit of a hard time later. That'll convince them.
Because logically, if you're thinking about it, why would Batista and Orton want to help Triple H when he's not giving either of them a title shot?
Exactly. So it was a really quite well done segment. And I think the thing about the show is, I know that this episode seems to have been getting quite a lot of bad reviews or average reviews. I think that's probably compared to last night, but I think in terms of being an average episode, if this is the new standard of average, then I'm kind of more than happy with it. But we'll get to that. So yeah. This is something I wasn't so keen on, though. The Brotherhood versus Ryback. What do you think of this?
Well, the match was fine. It was the result that I had an issue with, because I kind of got peace with the fact that Cody and Goldust were in the Battle Royal, because I'd heard that apparently, the plan was for them to maybe get into the tag title hunt after WrestleMania, but this just kind of seems like that's not happening at all. So, I like Ryback and Axel. I think they're decent, but I just don't think their characters are over. They don't really gel greatly as a team. You can mishmash their theme tunes together, but I'm still not
it's awful, isn't it?
I know, it's so bad. But yeah, the match was actually not bad. I liked the finish. I thought the finish was pretty good, with Cody trying to win with a disaster kick, and Ryback just blocked him.
Ryback.
God, I know. Sorry, Biggie. Ryback, blocked the disaster kick and gave him the meat hook, and that was it.
Actually, interesting fact about Big E Langston, just Big E. When
he watches television standing up.
He does it. When he comes out to the ring and he pats his hands together and you see all that white dust? That's not chalk. That's actually white guilt. Big E is crushing
or cocaine,
the white guilt of. It's too soon for jokes like that. We have a promo for Bo Dallas. I guess we could say for weeks and weeks about whether or not this character is going to work on the main roster, because it's effectively, I think his heel character in NXT is great, but it's kind of an in-joke for that audience. I don't know how it will translate, but I guess we'll see when we get there. So last week we were talking about Paige debuting and winning the title. We both expressed concern. She defended, I don't know if she actually was a title match, I'm not sure, but she had a match with Alicia Fox, which actually a lot better than I think it had any right to be. Alicia Fox, secretly not a terrible wrestler, but I'm not entirely sure if an underdog champion is really the best way to sell this. I mean, compared to last week, the reaction for Paige was positively muted, but at the same time, the reaction for everybody tonight, I would argue, was at Birmingham, Alabama. You're B- players in the term of crowds. So
Yeah, no, they're a pretty terrible crowd. I actually thought this match was really good
it was,
for
wasn't it?
5 minutes. And I thought Alicia Fox really impressed me. I really liked the aggression that she had. You know, sort of like the story of who the fuck do you think you are? You know, you're just this little girl that's come up from NXT, and you know I've been here for age. And I thought that her backbreakers looked incredible. I loved Alicia Fox's backbreakers. I thought they looked great, and you know that Scorpion crosslock is just beautiful to watch.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? Nod to Bull Nakano. Remember when Bull Nakano?
Yeah. But that's the thing, you've got Paige's finisher, she's got that, and then Emma's got the Emma lock, which looks really impressive. So, you know, the women are getting some really good submissions, and AJ's got the Widow's Peak. So yeah, I like what the women are doing right now.
Where do you think it's going though? This is what I'm curious about, because I mean, presumably, you know, she goes through. I take it she wrestles every week. Every diva comes up and goes, you know, you don't deserve to be here, blah blah blah, and she keeps getting wins. Presumably, it's like a video game. You know, there has to be a big boss. Who's the big boss? Because I don't really see anybody in that role.
Well, there's two scenarios really. Number one is that Paige gets a rematch with AJ at the pay-per-view if AJ's still going to be a sort of pinnacle of the division. Otherwise, I don't know who the top heel is going to be. I don't know. I kind of hope AJ sticks around, because I think AJ is probably the only heel right now that can really go. In terms of the Total Divas lot, could any of them turn heel? I guess one of the Bellas could turn heel, but then they would probably arguably just wrestle the other Bella.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because on that Raw script, I've kept a page up because they list. They have a listing page for the champions, and then they've got a list of all the baby faces and the heels. And interestingly, I think if you look at it, they list them in order of the company's perception of where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you look at the guys, it's like John Cena, Daniel Bryan, then Sheamus. They consider them to be the top three baby faces. Whether they're right or not, it doesn't matter. And then in the heel divas section is AJ, then Tamina, then Aksana.
Oh, fuck.
Then Rosa Mendez, then Lana, who's not even really a wrestler yet, then Vicky, then Alicia Fox, then Summer Rae, who's not even around, and then Layla. So it's a really weak lineup. I mean, and arguably, but then again, you know what? Even Natalia could, even as a babyface, have beef with her coming up and stealing the title. So who knows?
Well, yeah, the problem they've got is that all the Total Divas are babyfaces apart from Summer. You know, so there's like 5 of them. So yeah, you know, the babyface side, you've got the Bellas who you know, people will argue, but they are getting a lot better in the ring. You know, they can hold their own now. And then you've got Natalia, and then you've got Naomi from the Funkadactyls, who's really good, and now Paige. So it's a babyface heavy side with the women right now. But do you know what? I really enjoyed this match, and I'm open to seeing where it goes. But next was the tag match, wasn't it, with the Usos?
Yeah, the Usos versus Orton and Batista. The Usos had the Warrior half face paint on, which I thought was quite nice. Yeah. Orton and Batista, you know what? It works. I don't really care what anybody thinks. I think this is good. I like these guys together. And unfortunately, the match never really gets off the ground. It looks like we're never really going to see the Usos defend, because the Shield interrupt the match wearing those little face masks on, which I presume they bought on clearance from TNAshop.com. You know, those Aces and Eights face masks. And so Reigns knocks Batista out with the Superman punch, and the Shield look like they might be Batista and Orton's foes after all, because Triple H is there backstage to be like, well, I told you so. So, but yeah, this was kind of a nothing segment. It was really just to set up the story for the rest of the show.
I've said before, though, that I'm more than happy for to do this on TV. You know, you're not paying to watch this; you're watching TV. Yeah. This is the place to do these sort of angles, and people would complain about it. You know, if it was happening like 5 times a show, then yeah, I see your point. But do you know what? Like, this just makes you want to see the Usos and Randy Orton and Batista more. The fact that you're not seeing it, so maybe we will see it on a Raw or a SmackDown coming up to Extreme Rules. But I liked it. I thought it worked. I was happy, and I liked how they were. I'm not going to remember the chronology of it, but I liked all the Warrior clips throughout the night. And the one that I really liked, and it's a really underrated match that people don't really talk about much, is the cage match with Rick Rude at SummerSlam 19.
Yeah.
Great match.
I'd forgotten about that, really. And then they showed the clip, and I was like, I'm going to watch that this week on the network, because that is a really good match. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's everybody's favourite walrus. that John Lennon never wrote a song about. And he comes out to introduce the annoyingly music-free Cesaro. I'm really hoping that Jim Johnson is also on his honeymoon and that he'll be writing a new theme tune. I actually kind of wish Jack Swagger just went back to his old one and Cesaro got to keep the Real Americans theme.
I know.
I was like, why does he?
Although, do you know my favorite part,
the music rights?
What I loved about it, and it just it made me laugh so much because it was just so good, is when Heyman came out and said, I'm not the sort of guy to brag, but if I was going to brag about being the advocate of the conqueror of the streak, and just kept repeating it
so
to the point where people were just like getting so angry at him, and it's just like, he's just brilliant. He really is. I know we keep saying it, but like,
he is the best.
He's best. And the thing is, the best compliment I can ever give him is he's better than Heenan. He is.
Yeah, he is. He really has surpassed it. I think that one of the things that I've loved the most in wrestling in the last 2 years, and I've not loved many things, because I've also been doing the show for the last 2 years, so everybody knows how much I don't love things. But Paul Heyman is a joy, and I'm so glad he came back to work in the wrestling business. And he brings out just Cesaro, sorry, I keep saying everybody's full names. And quite a quick match, Cesaro and Mark Henry in the first round of the IC title tournament. Cesaro gets a couple of uppercuts in, neutralizes Henry, which is a pretty cool thing to see. And he goes over strong, which I liked because I caught a little bit of SmackDown, and I wasn't really that keen on how they positioned Cesaro against the Big Show, because I thought Cesaro's whole thing was now that he was the new freakishly strong guy, but the Big Show kind of bitched him out a wee bit. But then he came out on Raw and pretty much owned the world's strongest man. So I was cool with this. Cesaro advances. I know they made a joke about one of the commentary. I can't remember who said it. Was it Cole who said like, "Oh, he's an outsider choice," when he's clearly the favorite. Like, he's probably going to win it. But
yeah, I'm with you. I hope that Cesaro gets music. But I loved the neutralizer on Henry. That was great.
Yep.
So that was good to watch. And
Triple H is backstage again. He's all over the show. The internet must be going crazy. He tells Brad Maddox to tell the Shield that they're in the main event tonight, but they don't get to know how they're wrestling. And then out comes the ravishing Russian, Lana, and the
Bulgarian brute.
Yeah, the second best manager behind Paul Heyman, although I do believe Heyman has nicer calves. We get another squash match, basically. Alexander Rusev takes on R-Truth Jr., and that's kind of it. And then R-Truth Sr. comes out to help Jr., and Rusev beats him up too. So, yeah, I'm pretty cool with that, because R-Truth's really annoying. So I don't really mind seeing Alexander Rusev squash them. But again, this is one of these things where this is kind of like what they were doing with Ryback 2 years ago now, where not jobbers, obviously. Ryback was literally facing nobodies, but, Rusev is going to come out. It can only be a matter of weeks before JTG gets the call up. And I just wonder who his first guy is going to be. Like, who is his first sort of mid-card level person that's going to give him a bit of a challenge? I don't know.
The fear with these characters at the beginning is like, they're so good when they're just booked to beat people, but it's when they actually have to do things with like other stars. Like Rusev's the sort of guy that, like, if I was in the booking committee and, like, say for example, like, this is not how it works, but say for example you just had like name cards for everybody. Yeah. I would just make sure that Cena and Rusev's name cards were as far apart as possible for as long as possible, because I just have no desire to see him anywhere near Rusev. But
well, I was having the conversation with various people who disagree with me, because I originally said that I was kind of concerned about Rusev because he is effectively, he's the Rocky character. He's Ivan Drago. He's an 80s wrestling heel, and I just don't really know how far those kind of characters go. I would argue that Vladimir Kozlov had a very similar character. Ezekiel Jackson kind of had a very similar character. Now, the rebuttal to my argument from anybody that I've spoken to is that Alexander Rusev is a much better in-ring performer. He's more athletic. He's kind of, for his size, he can do very visually impressive stuff. And I agree, but I just don't know if he's that interesting. And we were talking about how now the characters in wrestling now, they sort of have to be a little bit more interesting. There needs to be a few more dimensions to them. And I just don't really know if he has it. Like, are people really into like seeing? He's the Great Khali, isn't he? It's the same thing that he did when he came in. He was just a silent, unstoppable guy. And it doesn't. I don't take any pleasure in saying it, but I just really think within a year, Rusev will probably be doing comedy segments, and I wouldn't even be shocked if a tag team with Santino wasn't in his future at some point. I just history has suggested that is a fair assessment to make. The last 5-6 years have certainly suggested that. I hope it's wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But it doesn't seem like they really know how to do these characters anymore. But I think it's not really their fault. It might just be that times have kind of moved on a wee bit. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I hope you're wrong too. I think that you get a valid
you always
point.
hope I'm wrong.
I do. No, I really like Rusev. I think the comparison to Khali is quite unfair because I think he actually seems like he's quite good in the ring. Which is the difference.
Yeah, I don't mean that there are very big differences. I just mean in the way that the character, he is a much better performer. But I mean the way that he's been brought in, and he has an advocate as is the new buzzword for managers, and he's silent. He doesn't do anything. He just squashes people. It's a similar presentation, although he is obviously 10 times the athlete that the Great Khali is. Well, the Great Khali is made of wood, so it would be hard, but I just don't know where the character goes.
Jim Ross said something quite interesting in one of his blogs today, and he said that the mix of Rusev as the sort of old school foreign heel with Lana is kind of like, well, the way he described it was new money, and I think it can be, like he kind of reminds me more of Umaga, but then they only knew what to do with Umaga for so long. So I hope that you're wrong, but
I don't want to be right. But I kind of feel like a character like this needs like a superhero guy to face off against, and I mean, you know what? If this guy was around in the 80s, him and Hogan would have been money. In fact, he probably could have done it in the 90s, maybe even with Undertaker in the earlier years or something like that. But I don't know who he goes against now. Like, John Cena's the obvious pick, but like you say, that probably wouldn't be good for Rusev. He'd just get Rybacked. And, maybe Bryan, but I think Bryan needs to be going up against different, more established characters than Rusev in these early days. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so next up we get Jack Shag. Oh my god.
Jack Shagger?
Jack Shagger? Yeah. Let's be honest, if he was around in the Attitude Era, that would have been the gimmick. He would have been the new Val Venus, Jack Shagger, versus Sheamus. Oh dear.
Funnily enough, that joke was more interesting in this match. Like, it was fine,
also,
but it was
kind of looked like Sheamus hurt himself, legit.
It did. I feel really bad. Like, I think the most interesting thing that Sheamus has done since he returned was actually do the Wyatt pose last week. Like, that is the only thing he's done. If somebody said to me, like, tell me your favourite part of Sheamus's return, I would really struggle. And the thing is, it's not that he's a bad wrestler, he's actually really good, but
he's just come back and done nothing to reestablish
they've just given him nothing. There's no character development, and I feel really bad.
Which is interesting, because according to the script, he's the third biggest babyface in the company.
Yeah, which is mad to think about. But then we got this was interesting. I don't really know what to make of it, but Damien Sandow came out and cut a promo, and the Big Show came out during it, and he kept cutting it, and then it all kind of ended with Sandow saying he reminded us he was a Money in the Bank winner, which made me want to cry, but it's true. And then Big Show ended up knocking him out, and I can't tell whether this was just a 5-minute kind of throwaway segment just to pass some time, or whether this was Sanders going to be put in a little mini feud with Big Show. But what came out of it for me was, like, even with the short hair and without the robe, Sandow can come out in 5 minutes and be a great heel.
Yeah, you've always been a big supporter of this guy. And
I think what annoys me the most is I remember last year that he was he did a little segment with The Rock at one of the Raw SmackDowns before WrestleMania last year, and then he was like doing lots of interviews at Access at WrestleMania, but he was really funny, and then he won Money in the Bank, and I thought there's no way this guy's not going to be on the WrestleMania card, and he was on it, but he was part of the Battle Royal. But I don't know, and I'm not saying necessarily he has to be a main eventer, but he deserves to be in a better spot than he is. And then, do you know what? I know they've got tons of guys that are just kind of in that. There's like this bracket of guys that are like, there's like 20 of them, and they're all just kind of so interchangeable because they're all just kind of like push, not, and it just goes off and on and off and on. And he's sadly at the kind of bottom rung of that. So I just don't see.
But you know what those guys are, though? Those guys are all future Jeff Wrestling champions.
Yeah,
I think the global force could be in their future. Next up, oh Jesus Christ! This is my
oh god!
This is my nightmare writ large, because Bray Wyatt came out with the Wyatt family. The Alabama fans seem to really love the Wyatts, probably because they all look like their uncles. And that rubbish joke there was better than anything John Cena said when he came out. I thought Bray was really strong to start off. I don't think it was his best stuff, but he came out and basically said, I've never lied to you. John Cena is a liar. All the kind of the usual rhetoric that he's been saying for a little while, but it was more focused. I think it's becoming more focused as the weeks goes on, which I like. They're narrowing the story down a little bit. But then then John Cena comes out and Kenny, can you do this? Because I'll probably
gladly. I was sitting with my friend Dave, and what this segment showed me that Dave had no taste because Dave thought this was funny, and he looked at me and I was just like,
doesn't Dave also like Bad News Barrett?
Yeah, exactly. So, but the funny thing was, he looked at me when this was happening, and the best thing I could come up with is I just looked at him and I just went, "It's just shite banter." It really is. It's just absolutely.
It's just not funny.
You know how I was saying on the, I can't remember what podcast it was. They all morph into one for me, but I make a point at some point in the last week or two where, and I stand by it. This promo is why he is not popular.
Yep.
This promo is the exact reason, because he is not relatable. He is cheesy. He is corny, but in the worst way. He's not even cheesy and corny in like an Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's so badass that you kind of let him away with it. He's just and then they have that, for some reason WWE think this Photoshop thing is really funny, where so basically, if you've not seen this, Wyatt comes out, cuts this really good promo, as he always does, about, he wants Cena to come out and play. Cena comes out, and funnily enough, his first sentence would be the only entertaining thing he would say all night, which was when he said, the last thing I need is another push, which was funny, a little in joke. That's fine. But then he did this Photoshop bullshit where he's like, oh, I wonder what Bray's mum would look like. Photoshop, an old woman with like Rowan's head on it or whatever. And it goes through for the three of them. And like, the kids and stuff are laughing in the arena, but there's just like, the adults are just not buying it.
Yeah, but it's like, the thing is that the Photoshop thing, it's not even, like, it wouldn't even be so bad if it wasn't so, like, it just wasn't funny. Like, I'm sure there is something you could have done with Photoshop and Bray Wyatt's face that would have elicited a smirk, even from a black-hearted bastard like me. But it just wasn't that. It wasn't what they gave to you, and it's just not funny. And I actually just brought up the Raw script because I was really intrigued to see, well, who wrote this. Who's listed as the writer behind this. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you full names. You might be able to tell me who this is. Segment 11 of Raw, which is the Bray Wyatt, John Cena in-ring promo. The writer is listed as Nick. Do you know who that is?
No, that does not ring a bell to me.
But he needs to get sacked. So yeah, there is actually lines. There is a script within the script for Bray Wyatt, and he kind of doesn't really adhere to much of this. Like, I've read through it, and this is maybe just like the guideline. They're obviously giving him guideline stuff. Cena's one, you would immediately assume, okay, Bray Wyatt's gone off script, but John Cena will adhere to script. No, he hasn't. John Cena's actually gone off and done his own thing here, so I can only assume that this Nick person has written what is on the script, and Cena has then went, I know how I can make this better. Now, the stuff on the script isn't great. It says things like, Sister Abigail sounds like a lovely woman. Hopefully you're not twins, because she might qualify as the ugliest woman on planet Earth. And the only thing that's going to be dropped on its head was you when you were a baby, and stuff like this, which I don't think he actually said at any point, so I assume he figured that he could make this better. And it's abysmal. And I obviously just came off of defending him on the main show this week for, getting too much shit from people, and then he goes and does this. John, you're killing me.
Well, Jim,
you're
the funny
killing
thing
me
is,
with this crap.
he in all defense to him, he actually did pull it back towards the end when he got serious again. And it's just like all this crap just takes away from all the good serious stuff that he does.
Yeah, but then you can't take him seriously when he gets serious, though, because he's like, in a steel cage! And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I know, it's pretty bad.
Like, and also, I'm not going to try and shit on the storyline. I'm not asking for an Oscar, Oliver. But didn't John Cena beat the Wyatts with all of them round the ring at WrestleMania, and now they're like, your family can't help you in a steel cage? And I was like, well, you've already kind of overcome them. It's just not very good. Well, it's not very good psychology.
The thing is, though, you can tell that the cage match is just a way for Wyatt to be able to win without having to pin Cena. That's what it is. That's the way for Wyatt to beat Cena without Cena having to take a pinfall. That's
Pretty
what the
much.
cage is for. But that's fine. You take the book in. Emma and Santino fought Layla and Fango. We're not talking about this. So inconsequential.
Yeah. Not inconsequential is the next segment, though. Backstage with Stephanie and Kane. Stephanie sits Kane down and, in her best Stephanie McMahon way, gives him an absolute bollocking, and she's very good at it. And she says that, like, what happened to you? You used to be this, you used to be that, but now you're just a sniveling wreck. And Kane got increasingly more frustrated and more frustrated. And in a moment that I actually thought was quite well directed, because I didn't really suspect this was happening, Stephanie moves out of the way to reveal the Kane mask in a glass case, which I actually kind of loved because it looked like a sort of comic book sort of supervillain type moment. Like Doctor Doom's going to put the mask back on, and I know we did a podcast all about how many times Kane's flipped his character around and done all these different things, and this isn't a heel or a face turn, obviously, but I'm kind of. Well, okay, so basically, he's going to put the mask back on, we assume, because he gets it out. And people are popping for it, despite the fact that maybe they have messed about with his character quite a bit. People in the arena did seem to kind of be like, "Whoa, here we go." And it is basically... it basically looks like something you said last night is going to happen, and that Daniel Bryan's first
Of course it's going to happen.
WWE World Heavyweight title defense is going to be against Kane. Now, a lot of people...
There's good and bad here. I'm going to
I'm quite okay with this.
The positive is that they have a history together. It makes sense. Kane as a monster is believable, and that Daniel Bryan, it's a good challenger for him to beat at his first pay-per-view. That's the good side. The bad side is after the ending of this show, there's no way it's main eventing.
No, it's not going to main event. But I'm also still okay
do you know what?
with
Like
that.
some people say, oh, people are going to complain because it's the CM Punk thing. But see, to be honest, Daniel Bryan is not going to be pushed as the guy. As much as we would love him to, he is, they'll make him the champion and they'll give him the sort of CM Punk level of push.
Yeah. Well,
But
to be fair,
always-
like
they're always
they did build the entire WrestleMania 30, the biggest show they've ever put together. They built around this guy, and I think this is just something that I think that I'm happy because on the one hand I know that he's not going to lose the belt, so I'm cool with that. I also think that there are not really that many heel contenders for him once you put into action the storyline that concludes the show. I mean, I was telling you about that list of heels and baby faces. Right now, Kane is listed as the third biggest heel in the company. It goes Orton, Batista, then Kane, and then Wyatt. And the thing that I think fans need to remember is that although maybe internet fans have a certain opinion of what Kane is, that is not how they look at him. They look at him as a big deal. They consider him to be a reliable performer who can deliver in the ring, who does look the best he has physically in a long time, and they always return to him. And it's not that people are going to go, oh, it's Bryan getting the Mysterio treatment. Well, you know what? John Cena, he had a big title win at WrestleMania last year, and then he got fed Ryback. CM Punk, at the time, was fed Bryan, who wasn't really that big a deal. And Kane was a contender. He had a big world title run. He did the stuff with The Undertaker. I know how a lot of people feel about Kane, but I don't think they see this as some kind of demotion for Bryan. And also, like you say, they have a history. They've never really concluded the Hell No story. And I actually think they could do something quite good with this. I don't think it's going to be long term, and I definitely don't want to see it go past one pay-per-view. But I just think that this is everyone needs to remember that the reason this is happening, as much as we all went, oh, how lucky were we that Punk walked away and we got at WrestleMania, these repercussions are still being felt now because, if Punk hadn't left, they wouldn't have had to do Bryan and Triple H, which meant they wouldn't have had to do the triple threat match, which means they probably would have done a triple threat match with the Shield splitting up, and now the Shield haven't split up, so they're keeping them together. They need a big team to go against, and it just makes sense to put them against who reunites later on in this show. So I just think it's, they've just not really left anybody else. I mean, if you look down the list of people, once you get past Randy Orton, Batista, and Kane, you're looking at the Wyatts in the heel column, who obviously dealt with Cena, and then you're getting into guys like Christian, Alberto Del Rio, Cesaro, Jack Swagger, and all that kind of stuff. The heel side of the roster is not really that strong once you eliminate Orton, Triple H, and Batista. And
yeah, I actually liked this a lot more than I thought I was going to like.
Yeah, I liked it, and so and you know what? The Extreme Rules pay-per-view, I'm looking forward to it because I think Bryan and Kane will surprise us. I hope if that does happen, and I think that the main event, which is clearly what they set up at the end of this show, is
Can't wait for it.
is going to be
Can't
quite
wait.
something. Yeah.
But do you know what was actually really good in this show, which I going into, I was not even in any way fussed about. Dolph Ziggler and Wade Barrett had a great match.
Oh,
Really
so
good
good.
match. It was like they both cared more about that IC title in that match than any of the other participants in the tournament. And even though you know if you've watched WWE long enough, you can always tell that when a babyface wins, that he's going up against a heel in the next round. So you knew Ziggler wasn't going to win, but they gave it a really good attempt to make you think he might.
Yeah, there was
and the good thing about these guys is these guys have quite a lot of finishers, so it's believable. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, when the Undertaker hits a choke slam, you know that he's never going to pin the guy. But whereas these guys have got so many little kind of finishers and things that it works. So I enjoyed it. But the main event, now the thing that's funny about this is Jinder Mahal can now say he's main evented Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate thing. So it was the Shield against 11 men: Alberto Del Rio, Fandango, Swagger, 3MB, Titus O'Neil, Ryback, Rusev, and Bad News Barrett. And the story of this was that, the Shield overcame these guys for a little while, and then eventually the 11 guys took him out. And then the glorious tune of Motorhead, Evolution is a Mystery, comes on, and oh my god, I've missed that theme tune.
My worry would be that they weren't really going to call it Evolution, and they wouldn't use the music this time. Like they would kind of just have them as their own entities. So to have the music hit and the three of them walk out, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And also for me, what that music hitting signified was this is the beginning of Triple H trying to turn Roman Reigns into the next big star. I think that is what this is for. People have been saying all day today, like, why are they bringing Evolution back? I don't get it. Blah, blah, blah. The reason they had Evolution in the first place was because Triple H and Ric Flair wanted to make Dave Bautista and Randy Orton the next big thing. And I genuinely think this is the beginning of the push for the Roman Reigns Triple H feud. That's obvious. He is the one that Triple H does the believe in evolution to at the end. He's the one he targets specifically. Rollins and Ambrose they're not afterthoughts, but they're kind of swept aside, and Roman Reigns is targeted as the main guy. And I think this is the beginning of it. That's what these three guys are going to set out to do. Triple H specifically, they're going to make the Shield look amazing. I wouldn't mind if this went 2 months on pay-per-view. I wouldn't mind if we had like an Evolution win and then they did another match, the Payback or whatever it's called. But I think this is he's strapping the rockets to the boots of Roman Reigns, and I still think Roman Reigns in a singles level has kind of been a bit patchy with his performances, but they obviously are high on him. So, and the six mans are going to be amazing. Cue War Games trending on Twitter. Everybody thinks that's going to happen. But I thought this was really a really, really good segment, and the first time we've really seen the Shield made to look that vulnerable. I can't think of another time in the last 18 months, or nearly 18 months, I guess, that they've ever really looked like they've had their ass handed to them. So and it was done. It was done
in a really good. It was done in a really good way because it wasn't just the Shield used all of their tricks to try and overcome the 11 guys, and it worked for a little while. And then I really liked the psychology of it. I thought it was really clever, and the Evolution thing was just great. It fit. The three of them looked great. I know, like, somebody messaged me earlier on today saying, "Do you know why Ric Flair's not a part of it?" And it's funny because it kind of goes back to something that I was listening to. I was listening to Wade Keller talk about WrestleMania, and he said that part of the reason, and I agree with this actually, part of the reason that the opening segment of WrestleMania worked with Hogan, Rock, and Austin was that all three of those guys still look like the character. Hogan still looks like Hogan, Rock still looks like Rock, Austin still looks like Austin. The reason Ric Flair's not there with Evolution is A, because he can't be trusted with a live mic, and B, he doesn't really look like Ric Flair anymore. Sad as it is, he looks very old.
Wouldn't mind seeing him do one segment with them though.
It would be nice, but I don't think they're going to bring him in as a sort of full-fledged member of Evolution, because it just now. Triple H is kind of almost in his role. He's kind of morphing into it a little bit.
And cue interesting twists that people have been positing on Facebook and Twitter, looking at the fourth member of Evolution could be someone from the Shield. Whether they could take one of those. I don't think they will, but it's been a lot of people have suspected that the Shield split will still happen, and one of those guys are going to flip over. I don't really see it because I think Reigns is clearly getting they want him to be the next Rock. really.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if Ambrose or Rollins would really work hanging about with Orton, Batista, and Triple H. But I think that I saw a really funny thing earlier on. It was like a South Park meme, and it was like a sort of fat, slobby guy sitting at his computer, and it was like, oh, Batista, Randy Orton, Triple H, buries everybody, and then like underneath it is a little picture of the Evolution entrance from last night, and then the same kind of fat, slobby internet guy sitting with an Evolution t-shirt on and sunglasses. And he's like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. But it just goes to show that in the right role, these guys work. And I think the thing that's important to remember is, like, I didn't see Evolution as it happened because I wasn't really watching 2002, 2005. So I've only kind of caught up with it on the way back. But if you look at it, they can legitimately, without people rolling their eyes, refer to Evolution as, you know, the greatest stable in WWE history, because a lot of the big stables in the WWE were either, rehashes. They tried to rehash the NWO, that didn't really work. They had things that were, dead in the water, like the Nexus. They had DX, but that, kind of dwindled and became a bit of a parody of itself. But Evolution never really went long enough, I don't think, to become long in the tooth. I don't really think it's a case of, they're going back to the well one too many times or anything like that. Like, I think it's quite a good thing. If the Shield were around in 1990, they probably would have tried to put them up against the Horsemen if they were in WCW or something. So this is the chance. We've not really seen anything like this before, and I really like it.
Yeah, I when Raw went off there, I had a really positive vibe. Shield and Evolution, Bryan, Kane, Cena, Wyatt. It's a good place. IC title tournament. I think everything's going really well right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. So I would give this Raw a thumbs up.
Yeah, I know some people were disappointed with it. I don't think it was great. It kind of it lacked a bit of pace and maybe some of the energy of last week. I think a better crowd would have helped. And Cena really hurt it for me in the middle. I thought he was bloody awful.
Yeah, he was terrible.
I think people were giving it a hard time. Jesus, people are going to think I'm on drugs. I'm like, well, this is all amazing. I even love Bryan having to defend his title against Kane. But we'll see how that goes.
Although the other thing to bear in mind is this was a Warrior tribute show as well, so some people were in a bit of a downer as well about that. That is something. You can't come to a show where you're basically told one of the most iconic wrestlers of that company's dead, and then be expected to be like, "Woo, party!" So it was, it's difficult, but I think
especially
they did a good
when the biggest
job.
live babyface is not there.
Exactly, that didn't help. So, yeah, that was Raw, and we'll be back next week with Inside the Ropes again, and we've got Kevin Kleinrock with us, not of the Flintstones, and I think that's it.
Indeed, thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to check out facebook.com/The Inside Network. You can tweet us your thoughts on Raw or anything else we've spoken about to @inside_the ropes. Check out insidetheropes.co.uk for all of our prior content and VIP content. And go, if you want to look for that Raw script, you can pretty much find it anywhere on Twitter and Facebook now because everybody is sharing it. So you'll be able to find it. If you're intrigued by it, it was quite an interesting read. So do check that out as well. And thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.